Alright, I'm recording.
History repeats itself in more ways than one by Friendly the Fowler. Chapter 3: Spending the Night Together. The two of them walked into a cozy-looking room with a fireplace at the back with a large kotatsu in front of it. Clover walked Kanako towards it and helped her sit down. Kanako sighed in relief as she placed her legs under the cozy warmth of the table.
It feels so good to sit down again.
So how's your leg feeling now?
Clover asked as he sat down across from her.
It still hurts a bit, but I'm sure that it'll heal quickly now that I'm resting. Anyways, just wait till you try my mom's cooking. She makes amazing dinners for us all the time.
Kanako said with an excited grin. Clover felt his stomach rumbling as he rubbed his legs under the comfy table.
Yeah, dinner feels real good right about now.
There was a brief silence before Kanako spoke up again.
So, why did you come down here? To the underground, I mean.
Clover was caught off guard by the sudden question as he came up with an answer.
Well, I came down here to search for the 5 previous humans that fell here before me, but I'm gonna assume they're not alive anymore.
He said, tipping his hat down with a somber look. Kanako looked down in sympathy for Clover.
Oh, yeah, you'd be right. Their souls are at the castle in New Home.
Clover clenched his fist as he continued.
It just upsets me that not only did Asgore kill those 5 children, but he just keeps their souls locked away as trophies. It sickens me.
They're not trophies, Clover.
Clover looked up at Kanako curiously.
What?
Kanako took a deep breath as she answered.
Those souls, we need them to break the barrier. It's said that if a monster absorbs a human soul, they become extremely powerful. Powerful enough to cross the barrier freely, even. But if one were to absorb 7 human souls, then they would become powerful enough to destroy the barrier completely. That's Asgore's goal, to free our kind from this place.
Clover looked surprised by this revelation.
I see.
Clover put his hand over his face while he clenched his other hand in frustration.
This just complicates things for me even more. Those kids still didn't deserve this, but y'all need them to go free, and I don't know what to think now.
Clover averted her eyes, unsure of what to say. Then Clover looked at her again.
If you don't mind... Oh, no, that's me.
Oh.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your experience with the last human that fell down here?
Kanako was about to speak before the smell of Soropa's cooking graced her nose. She heard footsteps coming from the kitchen, so she figured her mom was done making dinner now.
I'll tell you later. I think my mom's coming with dinner now.
Clover looked behind him to see Soropa walk in carrying a tray with 3 bowls on it.
Oh, Clover. Good thing you're still here. I've made an extra bowl of corn chowder for you if you were hungry.
The cowboy licked his lips in anticipation as Soropa handed him the bowl.
Oh, wow, thanks. Sure, I'm starving. This looks real good.
The orange-haired Kitsune smiled warmly as she sat down in the kotatsu next to Clover and Kanako.
Well, I hope you like it. And here's your bowl, Kanako.
The brown fox monster smiled as she took out a spoon to eat the food in front of her.
It looks quite tasty as usual, Mom. Well, feel free to dig in, Clover.
Clover didn't waste any more time as he took his spoon and began eating the bowl of corn chowder in front of him. He could feel his intense hunger going away every time he swallowed the food. A wave of relief washing over him. Clover looked at him with a concerned look as she began eating.
You shouldn't eat so fast, dear.
He stared at her, then back at his bowl.
Yeah, my bad. I was just pretty hungry, and this tastes really good, but I'll eat slower.
Kanako swallowed another spoonful of chowder before smiling at Clover.
I told you it was good.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I've refined my cooking a lot these past couple years.
Soroba said as she continued eating.
Hang on a sec. Dad, I'm in a call right now.
Oh no, Clover died.
Okay, I'm back. I'm alive.
Never mind.
Alright, here's my line. So, what other foods do you make?
Clover asked curiously. Soroba awkwardly twiddled her thumbs as she thought about it.
Well, since the dunes is pretty cut off from the rest of the underground, our food options are quite limited, to say the least. One time I did try recreating those feisty sliders they serve at the saloon in the next town over, but that didn't really turn out very well.
I remember you almost burned down the kitchen when you tried that. Watching you panic like that was too funny.
Kanako teased as she giggled.
Yes, very funny, Kanako dear.
Soroba responded, playfully rolling her eyes. Clover chuckled as he continued eating, a hint of jealousy in his eyes. He wished he could have this kind of a relationship with his own mom, or just his parents in general. But he looked forward to spending the night with these two. Then Clover looked down to see his bowl was already pretty much empty.
Oh, yeah, I guess I just finished.
Wow, that didn't take long. Must have been a while since you've eaten, huh?
Kanako said, only halfway done with her bowl. Clover leaned back as he rubbed his stomach.
Yeah, I was stubborn pretty bad. This really helped, though.
Well, I'm happy you enjoyed it, Clover.
Soroba said with a warm smile. A few minutes later, both Kanako and Soroba finished their own bowls as Soroba stood up.
Well, that was an enjoyable dinner. I'll take these bowls to the kitchen and wash them. Kanako, bring Clover to your room and use that sleeping bag that's stored in your closet. You can sleep in that.
Kanako nodded excitedly as she stood.
Sure thing, Mom. Follow me, Clover. My leg feels a bit better now, so I can walk there myself.
Clover was about to follow her, but then he saw something in the corner of the eye. He turned his head to see Flowey peeking out from behind a wall, gesturing him to come over.
Something wrong, Clover?
Kanako asked him. Clover suddenly looked back at her.
Actually, I feel like going outside for a bit first, just to, get some fresh air and collect my thoughts,
Oh, all right. I'll meet you in my room then.
Kanako said as she turned around and left the room. Before Clover started to leave the house, Soroba spoke up to him.
Hey, Clover. Before you go outside, I forgot to say this earlier, but thank you for what you did today. Saving my daughter and bringing her home. I really appreciate that.
Clover nervously smiled back at her, not expecting Soroba to praise him like that.
Thanks. It's no problem, really. I guess yeah.
Then he turned around as he began walking back to the front door. Soroba smiled as she watched Clover leave the room, but then she frowned as she sat back down before burying her face in her hands. Was the universe just purposefully toying with her at this point? The one key to fulfilling her late husband's dream is right in front of her now. Clover's soul is completely pure, so there's no risk of Kanako being harmed if she were injected with his soul's essence. But he just had to be the one to save her daughter from possibly dying alone in a ditch. The same one she fell into long ago before her husband saved her from it. Like what Clover did. Soroba's eyes widened as she realized the implication of that. She quickly snapped herself out of it. She hopes that Kanako won't become too attached to that human, much less. No, she can't think about that of all things. Still, Soroba didn't know if she could bring herself to actually take his soul after all he had just done. He clenched her fists as she became teary-eyed, frustrated with how unfair this was. Then she wiped her eyes before taking a deep breath. Soroba calmed down as she tried strengthening her resolve. Even though she knows Clover doesn't deserve it, she still has to do this, not only to fulfill her husband's mission, but to give all of monster kind a better chance against the humans when they finally do escape. She just hoped Kanako would agree to taking the serum this time. Soroba shuddered at the fact of her daughter hating her if she found what she wanted to do to Clover. Or worse yet, what she did to him if her daughter found out afterward. Her fingers trembled as she clutched to the edge of the table. Could she really go through with it? Could she live with herself if Kanako found out? Soroba closed her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts. The answer was clear, even if the weight of it nearly crushed her. For the future of monster kind, for Chujin, she had no choice but to go through with this. Soroba stood up before taking the 3 empty bowls to the kitchen to wash them. Clover opened the front door to see it was somehow fully dark outside, even though it was very bright in this part of the underground earlier. Then he saw Flowey waiting for him near the wooden mansion. He walked down the front porch and slowly approached this flowery ally.
So you wanted to talk?
Flowey's eye twitched in frustration as he stared up at the cowboy with a disapproving frown.
What happened, Clover? You were so eager to be the big hero to save those 5 missing children. Why are you letting these monsters hold you up? Just what about these 2 is so important that you have to spend an entire night with them?
Clover nervously scratched the back of his head as he responded.
I don't know. I guess I just got caught up, but about my mission, I don't really know anymore.
You don't know anymore?
Flowey shook his head as he smiled.
Clover. Is this really about what that little fox said to you? Does that really change the fact that Asgore still murdered 5 innocent children?
Clover shook his head while looking at the ground in conflict.
Well, no, but...
No buts, Clover. It doesn't matter if that murderer of a king needs those souls to break the barrier. And he won't stop here. You know, he's also gonna come after your soul and the next child's. Do you really want to just be another cog in the machine?
Flowey asked, extending his stem, bringing his face closer to Clover. Clover slowly looked up at Flowey.
No.
Then Flowey gently wrapped one of his vines around Clover's shoulder.
Listen, Clover. Those 5 kids are trapped in that castle. They need someone who can step up. They need a hero. They need you, Clover.
Clover narrowed his eyes, a hint of determination sparkling in them before looking directly at Flowey.
Alright. I'll just stay one night with these two, and then I'll continue moving first thing tomorrow morning.
Flowey smiled as he patted his shoulder.
Good to hear, buddy. I knew you still had that brave cowboy hero in you. But fine, you can stay one night with them. But that's it. Now, go have fun with those two while you still can, because tomorrow you'll finally be completing your mission. I'll make sure of that.
Flowey said before sinking back into the sandy ground. Clover took a deep breath. Flowey was right. He was getting sidetracked. He knew he couldn't leave Kanako behind, but those 5 children needed help, and Asgore needed to face justice for what he'd done to them. Clover adjusted his cowboy hat before walking back into the house. He walked down the hallway on the left until he saw a small flight of stairs leading to what he assumed was Kanako's room. Clover walked upstairs and opened the door to see Kanako sitting on the bed reading a book. She looked up from the book and smiled as her eyes met with Clover's.
Oh, there you are, Clover. So are you ready for our little sleepover?
Clover yawned as he had stretched his arms.
Well, as much as I'd love to hang out, I'm really tired. Is it fine if we go to sleep now?
Oh, yeah, of course we can. Silly me. You can get the sleeping bag from my closet over there.
Kanako responded as she closed her book and put it down. Clover went over to Kanako's walk-in closet and opened it before he began looking inside for the sleeping bag. A moment later, Clover finally found it, but he only ended up putting out a severely ripped sleeping bag, looking confused as to how it got this damaged. He exited the closet holding the torn sleeping bag in his hand.
Hey, Kanako, why is your sleeping bag torn up this much?
Kanako's eyes widened in surprise as she started to stare at the sleeping bag before she facepalmed.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I invited my friend Sadie for a sleepover here a few weeks ago, and she ended up tearing the sleeping bag by accident. To be fair, I had that thing for years, and I guess neither of us realized just how much Sadie grew these past couple years. Especially your tail.
Clover sighed before putting the torn sleeping bag back into the closet before closing it.
Well, that's just great. Where am I going to sleep now? Do you have any more sleeping bags or beds?
Kanako awkwardly averted her eyes.
That was the only one we had. But maybe, if you want to, then I wouldn't mind if we shared my bed.
She offered as she blushed nervously. Clover was a bit taken aback by Kanako's offer, a tint red appearing on his face.
Are you sure?
Yeah, of course. This bed should be big enough for both of us, since I extended this bed size myself a couple weeks ago.
Kanako answered with a sheepish smile. Clover took off his cowboy hat and boots before slowly making his way to Kanako's bed.
Well, if that's all right with you, then I reckon that's fine.
Kanako scooched over to make room for Clover as he nervously climbed onto her bed and laid down next to her. Still a bit flustered, Kanako reached over and turned off the lamp on the nightstand next to her bed, enveloping her room in darkness. Clover rested his head on one of the bed's pillows.
Kanako, before we go to sleep, you were going to tell me about what your experience was with that last human, right?
Kanako looked over at him.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. It was, a pretty scary experience for me that day.
Well, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to.
Clover said, frowning with a hint of guilt in his eyes. Kanako shook her head.
No, it's fine. I'll tell you.
She took a deep breath as she continued.
It happened around 6 years ago. Back when my dad was still alive, he took me to Snowdon one day since he was going over there to do some carpenter work. And I convinced him to bring me along. I was excited since I would get to meet a friend I knew that lived there again. While I was hanging out with my friend, I saw a monster running by, saying something along the lines of a human attack. But just as we realized what was going on, we were suddenly approached by that same human. My friend immediately sent an attack at her, just trying to make her get back and run away. But I think that only seemed to set the human off, as they began to attack him. Once the human kicked my friend to the ground, they set their sights on me, thinking I was going to attack her as well. Then they tried to attack me, but they just ran off.
Clover listened to Kanako intently, surprised by just what he was hearing.
Was your friend okay?
Yeah, he was fine, just a little injured. After that scary encounter, my dad soon found me and quickly brought me home. I could never forget the fear and relief in his eyes when he hugged me. I didn't realize at the time how scared he was for me. Needless to say, I was forbidden from leaving the dunes after that, or just being anywhere at all without my dad's supervision. Still, I barely got to spend any actual time with him due to how busy he was with his work. I just really miss him, ever since he died a few months after that incident.
Clover stared at the ceiling, still shocked by the revelation of Kanako that just told him. Then he looked at Kanako with sympathy in his eyes.
I'm sorry he's gone.
It's okay. My dad was the reason I decided to take up engineering and carpeting myself, to continue the legacy that he left off. I just really want him to be proud of me.
Kanako said with a somber smile on her face. Clover turned his head to look at her with a sincere smile.
Well, I'm sure that wherever your dad is, that he's already proud of you.
Kanako sniffled as she instinctively hugged Clover on the bed, taking him by surprise.
Thanks, Clover. I really need to hear that. And thanks for listening to my little sob story.
Then the fox realized she was practically snuggling him before quickly letting Clover go and immediately scooched back to her side of the bed.
Sorry, we should probably go to sleep now.
Clover slowly nodded, the darkness of the room obscuring his intensely blushing face.
Right, we should.
Good night, Clover.
Kanako said as she rolled over under her blanket, her back facing Clover.
Alright, good night, Kanako.
Clover responded, turning back so it was facing hers. The two of them both closed their eyes. For the past several years, Kanako had thought that all humans were dangerous and cannot be trusted, her father's words still fresh in her mind. Yet here she was, sleeping right next to a human that had just met that same day. Kanako knew she didn't need to worry, though. She had already figured out that Clover was different, and that he wouldn't hurt her. If everything he did for her today was proof enough of that. Clover, meanwhile, was still pretty conflicted. He wanted to save those 5 humans and bring Asgore justice, but that story Kanako told him about the last human. Maybe the children weren't as innocent as he once thought. But then he quickly shook the idea away. The human that attacked Kanako had to be as scared of her as she was of them. They were likely just a scared child, not trusting of the monsters because a lot of them tried to kill them and take their soul. Clover didn't do the same because he knew better, but he couldn't blame the humans before him if they didn't. Besides, he didn't know if the previous 4 humans were actually violent as well. They still had to be saved no matter what. He would make sure of it. The 2 of them were practically sound asleep now, as they soon rolled over to face each other, their bodies rather close. Kanako
You, hello? You alive?
Howdy. Yep, I'm
Yeah.
alive. Just watching you mess up your chances. Seriously, why don't you just kill that stupid fox?
Yeah, the narrator's dead. There's no one to narrate it.
No.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. I guess I'll narrate the last paragraph. Why not? Alright, Kaneko then hugged Clover's on her lap, while Clover rested his head on Kaneko's. Both of them subconsciously snuggled each other, feeling warm to cover in their embrace, yada yada yada. Okay, done.
And then everybody died.
The end.
It's canon now, motherfuckers.